Hey guys, welcome back to Winter Wolf's Den. Winter Wolf and King Z here, about to cover something we don't get into a whole lot of on the channel, but after this, we may. We're going to talk about Terminator Zero. King Z, bring your ugly mug up in here. There we go. Dude, first anime thing I think we've covered, right? Did we? Because One Piece I
Yes,
watched
yes, it
live action,
is.
but I don't think we've done any other, not even just anime, but animation, animated features.
Oh, you
I
did
don't think we've
the
teamed up.
solo. You did the solo for like Inside Out 2, and you did a
Oh,
solo
yeah, yeah,
for
yeah.
Inside Out. I don't think we've done
And
any
Mario.
other animated. Oh, Mario, yes, the Mario one as well.
But us partnered up Batman and Robin style. We haven't done any of that. We haven't cut into any of that stuff at all. So this is like a
No,
semi departure, but it's kind of in our scope, right? It's sci-fi. It's dystopian sci-fi. It's right up our alley.
yeah.
You
And we
know,
talked a little bit about it in our podcast, which is called Frostcast, which you can catch Wednesday nights, 9 to 10 p.m.
Wednesday nights at 9. And also, you guys might
Eastern.
remember, I think Eastern. I should have specified that because we do have those three people that do watch from India, and we love you guys. Thank you. Um, we brought this up, I think, as far back as our hype list for 2024. I think Terminator Zero appeared. I think it was in January, because wasn't that our like
Yeah.
New Year's list? What we're looking forward to. So there
Yep.
were articles about this going all the way back to the beginning of the year. So this isn't something that just crept up. There you go, dude. Poster slamming good. You get a couple of classic nods there with the posture. Aiko's kind of dropping into the present day kind of thing. That's always how they appear. So that was kind of dope. Like this is a good vibe right here. But
Yep.
we were looking at 8 episodes on Netflix, normal animated runtime, about a half hour. I thought they were all punchy to the point. I thought each episode did a pretty good job. I'd string me right into another one, so I like that. I did like a lot just in terms of cut and pacing of how that all worked out, because we've seen the opposite of that recently. And I know I'm not going to talk about it. I promised I wouldn't mention it by name, and I won't. But we've seen what when shows don't have that, and it's just kind of like, oh, that happened, then that happened, then something completely unrelated happened. None of that happened here. I think this show is very frugal with their time economy or their time currency. I don't.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that? Just before we do story.
No, I think they knew what their show was, and going longer than that would have been, I think, detrimental to the story, and going shorter than that. One thing I really liked about the runtime, it was very consistent throughout all 8
Mm-hmm.
episodes. We don't want to talk about what we were going to talk about, and shouts out to you, Star Wars Theory, for going through all this hate that you're getting for just
Still,
having an opinion. So,
still.
hats off to you. So we won't mention it, but you do have to say with a lot of their shows on that channel that they do. We're talking about like Ahsoka. I mean, all of them
And the
across the
Marvel
board.
stuff.
They're,
And the
they're
Marvel
very
stuff.
yeah, the Marvel stuff as well. They're very inconsistent with their run times. Like one episode might be 55 minutes, the next one's 22 minutes, and you never see the title character. Or you have the next one is like 35 minutes, and then for some reason you have like 5 minutes of something, and then like nothing else going on.
Dude,
So
dude, that always cracks me up with that show too, because there was like an episode and a half where he didn't show up, and he was just like, all right, everybody else can just do whatever, and we're gonna bring an episode from another show and supplant it right into the middle. And it was only 6 episodes of that, so it's the miniest of miniseries. We're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Terminator Zero on Netflix. We already said all the stuff about anime. I'll say up front, it's not my forte. I am aware of it as a genre. I am aware of it as a successful and growing genre, right alongside a manga. I will not know the technical terms if there are certain labels for tropes of certain things. I won't know them. You guys can let us know in the comments where,
yeah,
point us in the right direction.
I'm not a
You
big
know,
watcher myself. I think the only real exposure I've had to it is my wife's really into Avatar, and I watch
oh yeah,
Avatar, and I watch Korra, which is like the second part of
yep.
Avatar.
Avatar's a
So
banger. I know
so
it.
that's about the only one I've really ever watched. Now, back in the
True.
day, there was one that I always wanted to, but it was never consistently on in the States, and that was BattleTech, and I haven't gone
Oh
back to
yeah.
watch that.
Oh,
So, yeah, so not a big, yeah, my knowledge base is not deep in the
yeah. We're
anime
a little
world.
thin. We're a little thin there. Like I'm aware of some of the bigs, the One Pieces, the Demon Slayers, whatever Netflix throws in front of me on the startup banner. But Sword Art or something is another
Death
Attack on Titan.
Note,
Death Note, I
uh,
know.
the
Titan, I
Gundams.
know. Yep. So we recognize some things. But the one thing I'll say about it as a genre, even if you're not into the art form that it is, at least it usually contains classical storytelling elements, and that's something we're very
Yes.
much into on this show, on this channel in particular, is we like the hero's journey. We like
Mm,
interesting characters that may or may not conform to every social norm. Like some people do step out because it's sci-fi and fantasy and it's supposed to be that,
yep.
but it's always couched within a properly told timeless story. It's never the thing they put ahead of the storytelling element. And I
No.
think this show is a perfect encapsulation of that, because I just wanted to say right off the rip, like half of the cast here are females, right? It's even for animation, it's diverse because the lead family POC, right? So it's automatically something that you would think if the trolls had their way, they would say, we're going to dunk on this. I'm not here to dunk on
Mm.
this. I'll my score to
No.
the end, but I'm not here to dunk on this show.
Yeah. I mean, I have my nitpicks, but that you have that with every
Yeah,
show. Like one of the things I want to talk about is that this is a Japanese-based show, like most anime it is. I think it would have had a harder hitting if I listened to it in Japanese than the
with
English dub
subtitles.
over. Yep.
Yeah.
I think it would have the because some of the voices just seem to be off for the character that they're portraying. I think they
Yeah.
did a great job with the dub over for the main Miles. I think they did a great dub over for him and most of the female characters. I'm mostly talking about the young boys. I think the dub over, like, it seemed a little over childish, where I think the
Mhm.
Japanese would have portrayed that character a little bit better than the what it was actually written for in like something might be lost in translation due to the dub
Yeah.
over and stuff like that. So I think the Japanese version might have hit harder than that. That's like one of my nitpicks.
I think you know what, I'm glad you brought that up first, because before we even get into story, I was going to actually bring that up as one of my own as well. I think it's a twofold problem. I think that there's that things are lost in translation. I think you meant to say Malcolm as the
Yeah,
main
Malcolm.
guy,
Yep,
right?
Malcolm. Yeah.
Miles Dyson was T2. This was Malcolm, whatever the last name was, Malcolm Lee. So yeah, I think there's that the performance aspect, but I also think that the way, and dude, I'm not trying to be offensive. I don't know what I don't know. I'm just pointing out an observation. The anime I have watched, I think there are certain stylistic differences in how Japanese performances work. I think that they over emote in certain ways. I think that's just how they prefer to do their media. Where
Oh
if
yeah.
America's at a
Yeah.
5, they're at about a 7 or an 8 in terms of the over dramatic in certain situations. So when you couple that with some performances where there may be something lost in translation, it does put you like a, well, all right, that seems a bit much for this situation. You just dropped your ice cream. It's not the end of the world. Why are you up here? But I mean, I know from having family that are big into like K dramas and other things that like I think that part of the world, it's more of a classical stage performancey. Ah, when it
Mhm.
comes up. You know what I mean? So I think we share that as a nitpick, but I want to get right going in the story here, dude, because this is the first time I think you and I have watched a show enthusiastically in a short period of time. Like we started this when it launched last Thursday or
Yep.
Friday or whatever it was, and it's only Sunday now while we're recording. So we managed to cram in 8 episodes, half hour long. And if it wasn't any good, we'd have bailed. We made that promise to each other. We're like, hey, we're gonna give it like 2 or 3. That's our rule on the show. 3 episodes, right? Three
Mhm.
episodes of anything, and we're gonna bounce. I was sold, and I'm glad I did, because the show I think really picked up because it was great up front. But after episode 4, like it just went. Like, it was like, no, pedal down, and it just stomped the gas. So I think that this is probably one of the better things. I'm ready to talk about story, definitely, because I'm this is one of the better things I've seen in a while. So I'm pumped. I don't know where your pump level is going in.
Well, I think they took a with this they took a very story based approach to it. That's what I was looking
Yeah.
for, a story based approach where story outweighed visual, outweighed
Mhm.
cool like anime type stuff that you see in a lot of
It
the other
was
animes.
very reserved. It was
It was
very reserved with the over stylized. You're right.
Yeah.
Good point.
So I think they really focused on story, and I think this is something that we were talking about earlier in our Frostcast. That James Cameron was talking about doing a secret Terminator project. I think he needs to take notes from this if he's going to do it, because I think
Yeah.
this revitalized the Terminator story, bringing in another element that was never brought up before in the Terminator series. So I think the story in this is fresh, it's new, and I did like it.
I think you're spot on there as well. That was a great chat the other day about Cameron. It was a quick part of the show, but about Cameron having a secret project. I'm like, bro, you've been involved with 6 of them, and they've essentially, besides Salvation, been exactly the same thing. And they kind of
Mm.
even take a poke at that on this show, taking a poke at, oh, you guys think you can keep going back in time and it's just going to change the future for, you know what I mean? Like there's that they talk paradox a lot down the stretch, and I'm like, yeah, apparently we keep sending people back in time to make the same Terminator movie because
Yeah.
we've been back in time to save the Connor family like 90 times. The only Connor family I want to save at this point are like Roseanne Connor. Like bring me Roseanne and Becky and Darlene. Those are the Connors I want to save at this point. This family, they had their run, and unfortunately, they were obliterated in Dark Fate. So the less I talk about John and Sarah Connor now, the better. But this story here does a bunch of new stuff while paying the proper amount of homage and taking cues from the lore that I think we're looking for in a show, because it's still about humanity versus machines. There's still
Yeah.
AI. There's still the time travel element that kind of is the catalyst for everything that happens. So all the familiar beats are there, but they do work in enough stuff that's not as well known within the Terminator universe, like having a character that doesn't know they're a machine. That happened in Salvation, and which gets dunked on all the time, but I say is better than T3, Genesis, Dark Fate, leaps and
Yeah.
bounds better.
I like
And they have all that
Salvation.
familiar stuff. Me
Yeah, I
too.
like Salvation because it was something new. That should have been the sequel
Future
right after
War.
T2 to see
Yep.
what it was actually like for the humans in the future. You get glimpses and pictures of it during T2 and T1, but you never actually see it. And that's where Salvation answered that question. So I think Salvation is a very underrated movie. I think it got a bad rap due to the Christian Bale and the PA fight where he threw his phone at somebody. That was the only news
Good
that was
for
coming out about
you.
it.
That was, yeah, I know that it's sad. I think the only reason that Salvation doesn't work in the broader context of Terminator is that it needed T3 to happen, because T3 reveals that the Connors didn't win in T2, that Judgment Day was only delayed. So we couldn't see Future War because for the viewer, John Connor we'd already prevented that by the end of T2. But it does get all timey-wimey to use the Doctor Who stuff. But so this story here, this is a good one because it's simple, but it's nuanced also. It does have some complexities. It's about a guy, and there's dude, I guess we should do the spoiler thing, because this whole thing here is about time travel and
Hold on. Let me find
spoilers
it.
ahead. Terminator, Terminator Zero. I'm just
I'll
babbling
add
through
it
it.
later.
Okay, he's adding it in post. So you guys have had your, 5, 4, 3, 2, spoiler 1. The main character in one of the reveals down from the second half of the show is from the future. He escapes back in time with his own AI that he had been developing in a cyborg he had completed on his own to escape the future where nobody was listening to how he was proposing they end the war, because they had already seen the time travel thing not work like 90 times. We'd already sent somebody back to save John. We'd already sent somebody back to save Sarah. And here we are. Like, we just keep creating these future timelines where we're still boned. So he wanted to try something different. They said, nah, screw off. So he bailed. So he spends his entire adult life working on it, working on the AI that's going to protect humanity from Skynet, because he accepts Skynet as inevitable from America in 97 or whenever it was,
97,
whatever the date was.
August
Mhm.
31st, 1997.
Right. So the setup here is he's got his 3 kids. He's got an older boy, middle girl, a younger boy. I don't remember all their names. I think it was Kenta, Hiro, and I don't remember them all. I'm sorry. I'm terrible with names.
Yeah.
Whatever. But they have a
Yeah.
nanny. The nanny's name is Misaki. She's there the entire time. She becomes a main character in the show, because most of the show is the guy, Malcolm Lee, working with the AI Kokoro in his little corporate headquarters, trying to convince this system, which for some reason is leaning very Skynet at the beginning of the show, which I
Mm.
thought was great. I thought that was a great take, is that as the machine says, well, you invented me to be another weapon. That's all you people do, is invent science to make weapons. But what if that's
Yeah.
not what I want? So then he's got to convince her, dude, like, missile shield us, because America's boned. America and Russia are boned. Like, that attack happened in this show. Like, the only place in my understanding that got saved is Japan, because she
Yep.
missile shielded
And they
them
showed that.
along the way.
Yeah, they do show that, and yeah, that is the basics of this whole story is
Yeah.
right there. But in it, there's a lot of deeper meaning. Whereas, like, what is the true nature of humanity?
Hmm.
What is love? What is redeeming about
Yep.
humanity itself? Not including can there's also, like, if you want to go really deep into it, you have interracial love, even
Yep.
not like interracial platonic love, which
Hmm.
I think is a big issue today. Like, the people don't think it can exist, where I can show you 3 million different examples of it.
Hmm. Fact.
Uh, but also, it has a one of the greatest explanations of paradox and the going back in time issue that no one really thinks of. And that's the part that I'm going to spoil, because that's the part that really got me into it, was them talking about the time travel.
Yeah.
Is just because you go, everyone thinks that time is linear,
It's Back to the
and
Future.
when you go back, it's going to be the same until you go here. But in Back to the Future 2, we have that
Yep.
issue, and this is what they explained. When you go back in time, you start a new timeline. That everything
Oh,
that happened before doesn't happen the same way again, because you never existed in the past and now you do. So it's a whole new timeline. So everything that's happened that you know never
yep.
happened. So even if you
Yep.
go back to the future to the same point, it's going to be a whole new timeline. There's going to be changes.
Which is what happened to Marty McFly in Hell Valley. When he
Yeah.
went back. Biff owned everything and was a billionaire and was married to his mom and his dad was dead. Same shit.
And they
Brilliant.
talked about that
Brilliant
in
analogy.
episode 2, when they were going to send the female lead back in time. They were
Aiko.
talking about,
Aiko. I do
yeah,
remember
there's
her
like,
name.
there was a window that they had to send them back to, because the timeline will change. You can't just send it back to
Yep.
the same point, because that time doesn't exist anymore. So I think them having a window before the new timeline changes is a very awesome fact that you could think about, because you could literally watch time change while this Terminator goes
Yeah.
back. So them explaining that, and then they keep sending people back, which keeps creating new timelines. It doesn't just change this timeline. You have a whole new timeline that never existed anymore. And understanding that paradox is very well explained in this, and it's something they never talked about before in any Terminators. Back to the Future time travel hinted at it, but again, they didn't do it completely, because he went back, changed his parents, but
Right.
everything else didn't change. There could have, like, with him changing the relationship of his parents in the first one, could have changed his whole family dynamic. They could have had more kids because they were more in love, or they could have had less kids because they could have caused an issue with something.
He caught a
And
break that everything worked out for them and the parents were healthy and successful and his brother wasn't a loser.
yeah,
His uncle wasn't in jail. Like that was all a Marty McFly wins everything situation. Sure.
yes, but it doesn't tackle the paradox. Now, they did it in
Right.
they did in Back to the Future 2, where old Biff comes back and gives young Biff the
The
sports
almanac.
almanac, and then he changes his timeline, where everyone else's timeline changes a little bit too, but then he goes back and resets that, but it wouldn't reset it back to normal. It would be a
Right.
whole nother timeline that we've never seen before either.
Yeah.
So
Back to the Future wasn't about the paradox.
I
It was just about the
totally
mechanic
got,
of
yeah,
looping it. Yeah, you
yeah,
went down the rabbit hole, dude. You got caught
I
in it.
totally nerded out on that, and I just loved every
Yeah.
minute of it, that they
Yeah, the
explained
show
that
gave
so in
it gave you
depth.
your money's worth of the timey wimey. That's for sure. But I think they did it in a way that didn't like most people's brains turn off when you start talking about that kind of stuff. Even nerds in sci-fi, because it's tough to think about causality working in certain ways, and it doesn't. But I think that they gave you enough of it here on a level deep enough to satisfy without shutting your brain off, but also where they didn't just gloss over the mechanics necessarily of what would happen. I mean, they gloss over the mechanics. This is nonsense. You know, Star Trek. This
Mm,
ain't Star Trek. They're not talking about tachyons and temporal disturbances. They're like, no, we get in the machine, we got butt naked, and then we go back in time and do stuff. Here's what happens in the future. So they do that. So the Resistance sent Aiko back in time to take another poke at either neutralizing Malcolm Lee so he wouldn't be around to put Kokoro online or not. Because in that future, they had the double whammy of Kokoro and Skynet, I think, linking up. That was the future that they were from, is that
yeah,
they had double whammy AI. So they send Aiko back. It's a great scene. It's one of those effective callbacks. where it's she's saying goodbye to people, and as she's getting on the pad, a T-600 breaks into the base and is about to brain her wife and like some kid, and she's like, no, but then like the quantum leap thing happens and they're gone. And then of course she lands present day in Tokyo. I was about to say LA for some reason. Lands present day Tokyo and does all the same stuff. Like she's in an alley, she's in the kneeling down superhero pose, and she's got to basically figure out what the hell's going on. And that's of course Skynet had sent back in time whatever T model. I guess for that period it would have been an alternate T800 because it wasn't liquid metal or anything. It was like an endoskeleton, but not looking like Arnold because there's no need for it to be that. So they had somebody more Japanese appearance, which was kind of cool. Voiced by Timothy Oliphant, though, which I thought was interesting. If you didn't know that,
but he didn't have many lines to begin with until the last 2 episodes.
4 lines, right? And they were okay though, because one of them was "Stop squirming or I'll break your arms," which was cold blooded as hell because he said it to like a 12-year-old. Dude, there were like 3 times I thought that kid was dead. 100% 3 times. Oh no, he's dead. Oh no, he's dead. He's dead.
So were you rooting for him to die?
I mean, he did get kind of annoying. He was that kid. He was the Babadook kid to be. I'm like, dude, come on. You're the oldest. Stop with the crying and whining. But then, like, when Dad's about to sell him up the river, I'm like, oh, all right. Maybe this does suck to be you. So we have these dual storylines that are going on there. It's the kids as they're trying to get to their dad after some stuff pops off. We could talk about that. It's like the beginning of a potential uprising that Kokoro is behind, not Skynet, as she's trying to make her decision whether she's going to do the Skynet thing or not. And then we have the Eiko line where she's intermittently dueling and fending off the T-800 while trying to get the kids also to the dad so she can either kill him or convince him or whatever's going on. And that led me to one of my other more comical nitpicks that we were talking about the other day is there's a scene, and if this was that show that won't be named, we'd be talking about it. So I'm going to mention it here in this show. The human woman from the future who weighs about 115 pounds tackles around the waist of Terminator and stands him up so he can't move forward, and then absorbs like 8 sledgehammer blows to her spine and then walks it off because an explosion happens and the Terminator falls down an elevator or something. Like, all right, this is after she hung from a steel cable in the first episode and supported her weight and the T-800 grabbing her by the ankle for like 3 minutes. All right, it's a cartoon, but still.
That it was heavy enough to break the steel cable.
Right. It's heavy enough to punch through like walls and shit. But here's this chick just with one hand. She had the one-hander grip on the cable.
She did one hand and then 2 hands. No feet wrapped around because her feet are
No. Because she basically got blown off the walkway and grabbed the cable like last second to not die. I thought that was funny. So guys, those are the nitpicks that Kingsley and I have with this show. Is some of it has to be silly because you can't have a Terminator movie without it, but none of it breaks because everything else works. You're not annoyed that it happened. Like if this was that crappy Disney Plus Star Wars show with the twins, I'd be like, no, she'd be paralyzed. No, that kid's had to be crushed. No, all those cops are dead. But you don't because you buy into the vibe that the show is put together because everything else made sense along the way to get to that point. They earned it. You know what I mean? They earned the suspension of disbelief to me.
Yeah. One of the other things in this, it had a very, it did play a lot into Japanese culture of how important the family is, but yet Malcolm was so withdrawn from his family. Now, of course, they had the trauma in the family because the mother passed away, and it was the anniversary of her death, which is kind of funny that the anniversary of her death was on the day that Judgment Day. He
called it his Judgment Day, right?
Yeah,
Malcolm called it his Judgment Day.
The one thing I think they could have done, and now this is just me just spitballing with this idea, is something that they haven't done, and I think it would have been a really fun Terminator movie, because you don't know which side Kyoko is going to be on. And they've hinted at that a little bit, like she could choose either side.
Oh, yeah. She said it.
Yeah, it started around episode 3. Yeah, it was around episode 3 when she wasn't online, didn't have all the data of humankind in history. She's just running off of what he let her have access to. Because he had a plan all along on how he was trying to convince her to intervene on their behalf. So the idea was, because we don't know what Kyoko is that the Terminator is not sent back to destroy Malcolm. The Terminator is coming to protect protect Malcolm, and the human was sent back to destroy Malcolm to try to change the future. I think that could have been a really fun twist of fate type
Yeah.
story in this.
Well, we've had the machines sent back to protect in like three of the no, actually all of them except T1,
But
2,
but
3,
in that one,
Dark Fate, and Genesis. I think.
yeah, they were
Not
sent
Genesis.
back
Not Dark
to
Fate.
protect against another Terminator. I'm saying
Right,
they're
right, right. No, I'm
coming to
saying that
protect
would be
against
that would be
another
the good
human.
spin. You know, they
Because
flirted. Yeah, go ahead, go.
because they believe that they might have been able to stop it if they stop one of
Yeah.
the AIs or something like that. Where I think this one they were really playing at the one AI is like it's dead set. This is the reason it did it in one nanosecond, realizing that humanity is a threat to
Threat.
everything that
Existential
is
threat.
good, and that needs to be eliminated. Where the other one was built more on feeling and free will, as they talked about later in the development of the story, to protect to open up more of a open-minded but yet still be a weapon to protect them. And I think she referred to herself as another weapon. I think she was actually intended to be more of a shield than a weapon, not to fight back but to protect humanity.
Right. She had some interesting ways she went about that, like along the way, like when she commandeered the some million, I don't even know how they were made or how they were hidden, but the personal robots that what were they called? The innies, the oneies, I think it was the innies or something, INNO or something. Innos, something. I don't remember.
I knows that was it.
I
I
knows.
knows.
They're basically your typical iRobot kind of like worker droids that were like they were just integrated into society. In some places, some people had them, but for some reason, millions of these were stored in the Tokyo subway. I guess so.
They did hint at that. Like it wasn't just out of the blue. They were talking about that they were
Yeah,
marched down there in a old
yeah.
abandoned subway
Just
area.
World War II like fallout
Yeah.
shelter stuff.
Yeah,
They
for
showed the
storage
map on
because
the
they
wall.
weren't ready to be sold into the public yet. So they were just storing them there so it'd be easier to get them once they are sold into society so they don't have to wait for it to be shipped in from
Sure.
the
Again,
factory.
they explained it. It's a bit farcical in my opinion, but they took the stab at it, which is what I've always said I want to do. You can make me believe that the man can fly in Superman. You just have to tell me how. He's an alien. He got powers from our sun. Okay, sold. He can fly. Like you don't need to break shit down and make it the science of the moleculars of it. Nope. We built these. We were going to sell them. They're not ready for market yet. We're storing them down here in this place that we know about. Okay. I don't know why. I don't need to know why you didn't store them in an Amazon warehouse. That's fine. They're stored. They were built. They didn't just appear. So that all worked. I thought that it was fun watching that uprising because it showed how quickly a society can absolutely fall apart when you just like the Joker said, just give it a bump. Give it a bump and watch what happens. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Because people went nuts almost instantly, and it's interesting to see how an unarmed society fares against an armed threat. I just thought I'd throw that in there. That's my libertarian poke for the video. Incidentally, not well. It's not well what happens.
Nope.
Um, so Kokoro had some interesting ideas, and we spent those middle block of episodes kind of playing out Malcolm trying to get through to her, having some minor successes and failures, but she came across as 100% cold-blooded. Like once she was already weird getting to being put online, and like there was that moment of tension in episode 3 when he turned her on. It's a pretty good bookend to the finale episode where his son has to decide whether or not to EMP the whole thing. Where it's
Yeah.
like, all right, so I could put her online and she could save us, so she could destroy us now.
Yeah.
And then at the very end, it's for Kenta, it's the same thing
Kenta.
because the T-800 has this weird switcheroo, drop a plot bomb on you that the T-800 in this show, who's been trying to kill everybody for 8 episodes, was sent back in time by Kenta
Yep.
to get to this point where he's going to now block the room the EMP is in, so Kenta can decide whether or not to trust the T-800 and either EMP and not EMP the whole thing or EMP the whole thing. And they got that great scene where the T-800's like in the door thrashing all the Enos that are coming at him. And he's basically like Hodor at that point from Game of Thrones. He's holding the door literally as trillions of Eno robots tear him to pieces. But I thought, dude, what a wild shift of events where you're like, oh shit, this kid's got to get to the EMP and scrap these things quick. And he's like, you might not want to do that because, if you do that, you're boned. And meanwhile, you've got like 67,000 things trying to kill you. So it's like, well, which thing is true? And that came out of like nowhere. Like, so that's the interesting twist. Like the T-800 that has to abruptly explain itself. Because why couldn't he have just said that? I guess that's a nitpick. Like when you drop in, if you can talk, why don't you be like, bro, I'm here to tell you not everything's what it seems with Kokoro. But instead, he killed like 9 civilians, 70 cops, tore that chick's arm off, almost crushed your skull, threatened to
Well,
shoot you with a shotgun.
so I think at the beginning it was before Kokoro was online. Like she was offline in just their test
She's
environment.
just in their servers. Yeah.
So he was trying to get to him. So he was trying to take the kids as labor. She get in there and destroy it before it
Right.
had a chance to come online. But once it was online, he knew his only answer was to EMP it. That's why he
That
started
makes
talking,
sense.
and then told Kenta, "You're the one who brokered the deal between Skynet
Yep.
and humans.
Very
So you
Neo
sent
from
me
the
back."
Matrix kind of thing. Yeah.
Yep. And we didn't talk about how she missile shield everyone. She took over one of the nuclear missiles and shot it straight and had to detonate
Oh, yeah.
with the other nuclear missiles that blow them all up in the air before a detonation. Now,
Orbitally. It wasn't in the
yeah,
atmosphere. It was orbitally.
yeah,
So we're not all dead
yeah,
in Japan.
because
Everywhere
if you
else is
think
bombed.
about how a nuclear weapon works, it's actually an air burst weapon, and now it doesn't hit the ground and explode. It blows up in
Flattens
the
down.
air because it pushes the pressure down, which would destroy everything.
So I think we got our. Let's talk visuals for a second. We've done a lot of story kind of all over, and we weren't going to do it beat by beat because there's 8 episodes. And I think we've grossly covered. Everybody knows what Terminator is. There's stock scenes when you're figuring out. Oh my God, come with me if you want to live. I want to talk visuals real quick though, because as a newcomer to anime, grossly, a lot of gore. Wasn't expecting that. There was some gnarly stuff that went down. The Terminator drawn in this style with the glowing red eye in some of the dark scenes they set, intimidating as hell, like old school,
Yeah.
like Terminator T2, like none of the namby pamby, well lit highway chases, at lunchtime. Like, nah, bro, there was like sewers, dark hallways, city streets with no lights. The Terminator has like a cloak on at one point. Like, dude, who is this bad mother? Is this Mad Max? Is this Terminator Mad Max? Because that's what it looked like. It worked. He
Yeah,
built a
it worked. It
crossbow
worked
into his
well.
arm.
Yeah.
What? I'm like, okay. Because we talked about that pre-show too. Like, what's the culture going to be different for a Terminator movie in Japan? Because these clowns think there's a gun store every corner in America. I'm like, that there's really not. In some places that there's a lot of gun stores. Most of the country, in fact, is not. I see that in comments everywhere. I'm like, dude, it's not. They're not. You can't walk outside and trip over an AR-15. They're very expensive to buy in most places for most people. Stop it. So it was interesting that even in a place where the Terminator should have known he could have got advanced weapons from the cops, and he took a couple, which I thought was cute. But dude built himself a crossbow in his forearm, which was slick as hell. I got to give him points just for that because that was dope. That's metal, literally metal. I like that. But it goes to show if all the cops had their little revolvers and like the one cop had a shotgun one time, like these guys got straight murked by like one T-800 that just slow pimp marched himself very Terminator 1-ish through the police station to find Aiko and the daughter. And I'm like, all right, so it's a callback, but they didn't recreate the scenes. They didn't do the whole "come with me if you want to live" line. So it wasn't like Alien Romulus where I'm like, no, that's not how it went. They did their own thing. They very sparingly used the score, that typical dun 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 dun. Like the Terminator got that when he entered scene a couple of times, but they didn't blast that theme music start to finish over the credits or anything. It was its own thing while being part of the Terminator. But what did you think? Give me your favorite visual. Oh yeah, go ahead. But then tell me about your visuals after what you're gonna say.
Yeah, they also made the Terminator a Terminator where he's hard to kill. Like you didn't have you didn't have the top with the magic bullet gun that sat there and blew his head out and then he goes down like they do with a lot of the robot ones where they're like 3 shots from a 9mm and all of a sudden the robot's dropping. I'm like, no, robot wouldn't drop after a couple 9mm. You're gonna have to destroy so much.
Yeah.
The visuals was great. I love the style is very it's very appealing because you could do so much with it. We talked earlier in our Frostcast podcast about making Mistborn a animated series, and I think in this type of style, Mistborn would work real well to show the different powers of burning metals and stuff like that. So I think the style of this is very appealing to this story, and it's I liked it. I don't know what else
Yeah.
to say about it. I couldn't.
I liked a lot of those visuals too. When we get to Misaki, who we haven't talked about a lot as a character, so she's an interesting one. She gets the Sam Worthington from whatever his character's name was in Salvation. She gets that treatment. You know, she thinks she's human until the Terminator grabs her by the elbow and rips half of her arm off, and you get to see the rig and the cables and shock everybody. Like, yeah, it might have been a giveaway that her eyes were purple, but to me, as the outsider, I'm like, it's anime. I think people have purple eyes sometimes. She's the protagonist. She's special, yada yada. But literally, I'm like, oh, that should have been probably a dead giveaway that she had purple eyes. She's a computer. She's a machine. So we get a lot of that weird, like the big reveal. So that again, this is how you do commentary without bashing King Z over the head with it. One of the kids turns on her instantly for being a machine, because already he's seen machines do ill shit. He's like, nah, fuck that cyborg, get out. But like the youngest daughter and the youngest son, like that's their nanny. They love her unconditionally. And when when Masaki proves herself to Kenta later by the end, he comes around too. Like, dude, there's messaging there, guys. That's how people will accept messaging in your stuff about treating people as equals and respectfully and things like that. You don't have to read King's Either Riot Act for not liking a show. You know what I'm saying? Ba-bam, ba-bam, ba-bam. Just tell the effing story. Make it quality.
Yeah. And one of the things they did well is they hid a lot of it, and you had that mystery of what's really going on. Like, how does a guy who was born in 1983 and it's 1997 have a full AI around him and know how to do that? And then you have Misaki, whose backstory you don't know. Why is she with this family? And then you see that she has a robot arm. Well, why does she have a robot arm? Why doesn't she know she has a robot arm? And then just the way they layered the mystery, and then the reveal of it wasn't just over exposition stories. Oh, you are a robot. And the best thing they did is that you have this mystery character, and you don't reveal it in the first 15 minutes of who it is.
Yeah, exactly, dude. I'm glad you said that about the foreshadowing, because when I went back and did those little refresher kind of views and skipped through some things, you're exactly right. The first hint that something was up with this chick should have been that, like, when she's in with the cops, they're like, we can't find anything on you.
Yeah.
Why? But then logically, the T-800 shows up and interrupts that progression of conversation. Yes. So she can't answer, but she doesn't have to, because now she's on the run. You know, they played a similar angle with Aiko, who was sent back in time to either do the protecting or the neutralizing, depending on how it went. We see her talking to a character they definitely ripped off from the Matrix, the Prophet. I could have done without that. That was, if I had a weaker side of things, I think we needed her to explain Paradox, but like Malcolm probably could have done that. But I get why they had that character. Like, that's fine. That was her job. So I thought that was some of the weaker stuff. But
which I think she was a hint at who Malcolm really is.
Yes. Which is what I was going to get to here. Is we see later, because they do the last 3 episodes, just like bing, 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 big reveals of cool stuff, in my opinion, and they earned all of them. So we see it where Aiko in real time or present day is in a fist fight with the Terminator, and it crushes her hand. It just destroys it. I thought she lost it, because that first graphic I thought was like a reddish purple gore. I thought it was gone, but it's just broke. It was just
I did too.
I was like, oh shit, it's like we just got Anakin'd up in here. Like, it's on. Now it's on, right? And then when we get to the resolution in the finale episode, when we realize that it was Malcolm that got sent back in time, Aiko's his mother. And when they flash forward to him having been in the future, it's her smiling at a younger Malcolm, and she's got the robo hand. So it's like, it's the effects. She never had that, went back in time, lost a hand, and in the new future, prosthetic hand. But she's still there to send him back. It's all, dude, it spirals so quick, but it's so cool when they get it right. It really is. Yes. It's so cool when they get it right. Digging it, dude. Digging it. But I mean, where do you think they go from here? Should there be a season 2 of this, or did they do their thing? Is this it?
I don't think it's going to be it, because you have it where does Kyoko go from here? So it's going to be, where does the AI, because the AI temporarily decided to protect the humans. At first,
Skynet's still out there,
and Skynet's still going to be attacking. So where does the future go now? You have a whole fresh timeline. Salvation is no more. John Connor is no more, because it is.
Well, John Connor might be in North America somewhere. We don't know if he's no more. He could, in the timeline that they rebuilt, there could still be a John Connor, He just might not
Mhm.
be the John Connor, right? I mean,
Yes.
kinda. Okay, see, I'm making sure I'm
And
following
then
along.
and then
Dude, this
also
stuff gets
like
deep. This is the marker board meme with
yeah,
time
yeah.
travel, bro. It is.
Yeah, and then you have Kyoko wasn't mentioned in any of the other ones or Skynet having a partner. So this
Right.
introduces that because maybe Kyoko was never brought online in one of the timelines or the timeline that they
Right.
were, or that she was brought online and because she was an AI and she automatically sided with Skynet, they didn't need to mention her because Skynet's objective was still um, prevalent. So
Right.
now you have two competing AIs right now. One that wants to destroy
It's wild,
humans
dude.
and one that wants to study
Kinda,
humans.
sorta. Dude, kinda, sorta. At best, it's kinda, sorta. Because, dude,
Yeah.
you can see in Kingsley's little headline under his name there, guys. One of Kokoro's lines when she was basically taking over Tokyo to rescue it under threat of violence with an army of the Eno robots armed with machine guns, rounding people up. She's like, "Oh, everything will be fine. You are under my protection. Comply or die." Like,
Yep.
that's some Hal from like Space 2001 bullshit going on here.
And the reason
She
why
ain't
she said
nice.
that humans might be the ultimate weapon against
Right.
Skynet. Now
Her
you're the
opponent.
weapon.
Right. Dude, dude, I hope they get a season 2 of this because I think this is a great way you do because we bitch about this all the time, dude. And I'm gonna say it, dude. Damn it, I'm gonna break the rule. The Acolyte could have been its own thing if it told its story and didn't wrap itself into anything else. That's all I'm saying. Terminator
Mm.
Zero exists in the world of Terminator, and it managed to not reference Sarah Connor, what's his name? The kid, why can't I think his name? Sarah Connor. John Connor,
Yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, the T-1000, the thing that happened at Cyber. I think they mentioned Cyberdyne once. I
They
think
brought that
was it even just
Cyberdyne.
mentioned?
Yeah, it was Cyberdyne brought
Brought
Skynet
Skynet online,
online.
and then done, and then
Yep.
done. Skynet was just a background threat. The threat in this show was the one T-800, and you not knowing what Kokoro was going to do, and to a lesser degree, you not knowing what Aiko was going to do. There was there was oscillation
Mm.
from like all of them really along the
Yep.
way. Their motivations were in flux, but unlike that other garbage show, they took the time in this show, which ran about as long or maybe a little less runtime average, right? Because it was all 28. There were no 48-minute episodes of this
No, they were
nonsense.
all 28 to
Right. Boom, boom, boom,
29
boom, 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 boom.
minutes.
Cookie cutter, right? You got a feeling why Aiko could be swung either way. You got a feeling why Kokoro, even though it's alien to us how a machine would think,
Mm-hmm.
because she wasn't programmed. That was a distinct point. That other people have always programmed AI. I'm just going to give you access to some stuff and see what you think. And
Yeah,
then the
and he talked
T-800,
to
which
it
admittedly
like
was a
a
little weird.
person, like the whole
Right.
thing where they when
Pick
he
your
first
own
brought it online,
name.
and then it was like she wanted to be a female, and like why
Yep.
did you choose a female voice? It was because females are the
Creator.
creators, where men are the
Mm.
destroyers. So
And
I
the
want to
name
be
she
part
picked
about
was brilliant.
creating.
Like
Yeah,
the
all
name she
their
picked is like
names are
it's all these
very
different things. Yep.
symbolic. And that was the thing
Mm-hmm.
with like you saw with Kyoko. Kyoko means three different things, and you didn't
Yep.
see it represented as three different entities as he's talking. But
Like
towards the
three different
end,
colors.
when
Yep.
he's convincing her, she's becoming one, and you can
Yep.
see them like
She Captain
phasing
Planeted that
together.
shit. Yeah. That was
Yeah,
pretty dope. Again,
and that
visuals,
was
dude. Visuals.
and that was the part. Is like when you come together, you will realize like his
Mm-hmm.
plan. He was playing 3-dimensional chess against someone playing
Time travel,
checkers.
bro. Four-dimensional chess versus checkers. Time travel. Dude, but I'm digging
Yeah,
that, dude. If they get another season, I think it's like you said, Skynet's still out there. There's a threat. It doesn't have to go find John Connor. It shouldn't go find John Connor. Let this thing play out in Japan as Kokoro deals with other incursions of Skynet. Skynet could send in an army of T-800. Who knows? There's shit it can do. There's time
yeah.
travel. It can be interesting, and it doesn't have to be a retread, and it also doesn't have to kill John in the first 10 effing minutes of an episode. Looking at you, Dark Fate. You know why you bombed? That's why you bombed. Nobody
Yep.
cared that you had a strong female lead. I'm over that. We just watched yet another show. Masaki on a female character's hero's journey. Starts off kind of meek and mild mannered, turns on the Eon Flux underworld backflippy combat shit when she had to protect her family. That's it. Aiko, same thing. Volunteered for the job to go back in time knowing it was a one-way trick. Why? Protect her family. That's
And
it.
protect, and not just her family, her chosen family, the
Right.
survivors.
Right. Right. So yeah, dude, we can stop all that noise. Yet again, another modern example of when it's done right. No one has anything negative to say, especially not these two guys. Dude, I got to give this a score because I've been chewing it around in my head for a minute. Do you have anything else before we go into scores?
No, I was about to say let's start wrapping this up and let's get
Let's
some
roll it.
scores going. I think
All right.
we did enough explanation of this.
I'm just
show.
excited to talk about good stuff.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
So you go ahead.
You go for. All right, I'll go first. We'll change, dude. I was probably gonna give this a 6.5, 7, but after talking to you, I'm gonna bump it up to an 8. I'm gonna give it an easy 8. I'm gonna undo a couple of my nitpicks. I thought that the family angle was a little undercooked. Malcolm and the kids. I get what they were going for, and based on the economy that they had time wise, they had already portrayed him enough as kind of like an absent father with a mission to save everybody. But I would have liked to have seen a little bit more fill in with the mom, because I'm a little unclear on if mom died in a bus crash or if it was a terrorist attack. I think it was a terrorist attack that caused the bus crash. I'm not sure, because he said it was a random event. I'm like, I thought there were terrorists involved. I thought it was mentioned.
No. He said he believed at one point that it was someone trying to intimidate him to stop his work or something like that.
Okay.
It was stuff that he was believing, and then he
came to understand it was just random, awful, random thing. Yeah. Right. Okay. So with the family stuff out of the way and some of the performance stuff, you just have to know that that's a different style going in. With we were talking about the voice work very early on, where some of it's over dramatized and lost in translation. It didn't remove me from the story at all, because the emotions were all appropriate to the scenes they were in. Angry voices for angry scenes, happy voices for happy, crying when crying. So, dude, it's an easy 8 for me. It's not perfect, but nothing's perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. It told an interesting take on Terminator lore and didn't trash on anything that I liked that I grew up with. Easy 8 from Winterwolf. What do you got, dude?
Yeah, I'm right about the same. The thing is, I think Kenta should have had more consequences for his actions and his beliefs, because he was a driving factor in everything that went wrong for that family. Because he thought he was smarter than everybody else, and then you realize
he was kind of a dick.
Yeah, he was, and I think that had to do a lot of it with the translation. I think that's where listening to the actual Japanese would have hinted at a little bit better, but like his actions directly impacted everything in a negative way, other than unless his last turn at the very end. So yeah, I think he should have more consequences for his actions. I think they told the story great. I think they did a fantastic job of drawing out and telling you who these characters are and what they're about in 8 episodes, 29 minutes each. So you're looking at what 4 hours?
23. Yeah, dude, 23 times. Yeah, pretty much 23 times 8 episodes, 23 minutes.
I think they did a great job of outlining characters where a lot of shows today, yes, we're looking at you, you still don't know who a character is after 8, 22, 45, 137 episodes. So
motivation flip-flop. Right?
And
what you talking about?
And dropping your motivation at a drop of a hat. So I think this stayed true to itself. It stayed true to the lore, and it had a great explanation, once again, of time travel. For that alone, it gets a 9. So
oh my God, he went to 9. He went to 9. All right, dude. Dude, fair enough, dude. You found something that you loved about, and that's the thing, dude. I think there's a lot in this show that if you're not, and again, since we're not anime guys, I don't know quality wise if anybody can nitpick like the frame rate or the art. I thought it looked good. It wasn't dyslexia in a seizure inducing, not dyslexia, epilepsy inducing with any flashing lights or anything like that. Like, no, it was very reserved with the combat and all that kind of stuff. It does have the gore to it. So if you're into that kind of stuff, there's enough violence here for anybody to watch. Last thing I wanted to touch, just because I always like to mention this stuff. Would you let a 10-year-old watch this? Is it kid appropriate given that level of violence, or is it still cartoony enough that you'd let it slide?
I think because of the theme of it, I would make it like NC-13 or higher.
Yeah. Okay, true. Just wanted to get that in there, but I think that's going to do it for us, guys. King Z, do that reminder thing, because this isn't a live cast, so we have to save our joke for Wednesday. So now do the real outro.
All right. Well, as we do a recorded video together, this will be coming out later today. we do need to ask you to help us with this channel. And by helping us, we're asking you to subscribe to this channel. If you did enjoy this review, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Hit that thumbs up so other people get to see it and maybe they will subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss when we drop our new stuff, like our Frostcast at 9:30 or 9 to 10 o'clock Wednesdays Eastern Standard Time. So you will never miss any of our great content. Go ahead and go over to Spotify if you want to listen to the audio only version of our podcast.
We're there.
We're on Spotify, we are on Amazon Music, and we are on iHeartRadio as of last week. We'll explain more of that on Wednesday, 9 to 10 p.m. Eastern.
Oh, he's losing it.
Thank you.
He's losing it.
And have a great day.
Laters.